Yes, everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Stephen Howson, and this is 5 things that we learned watching Manchester United draw against Aston Villa. Number 1, no penetration. One of the most Louis van Gaal performances that I've seen, well, since Louis van Gaal was in charge, if I'm being honest. Manchester United had lots of the ball, 2/3 possession, actually, and we just went side to side with it. We went side to side with it because Villa sat back in a low block. They hit there with 2 banks of 4, and it was like, break us down. We know you can't. And the reason that we can't is because we couldn't get the ball into Juan. We couldn't get the ball into the forwards. If you look at the frequent pass combinations, it was basically defenders to defenders, midfielders to defenders, midfielders to the other defenders, defenders to midfielders, and defenders to defenders. That was it. There was no passes into Juan. There was no regular passes into the forward 3. And if you look at the game itself, and if you look at the pass maps of the players, it's literally side to side. Because that was the only pass that we could do. It was safe. And it wasn't like losing possession, but it wasn't doing anything. And that was my issue. And that was one thing that we saw Dylan Levitt bring to the table against Astana. That decisive passing through the lines, that laser-guided pass. Now, I don't know if Dylan Levitt is ready to play those games in the first team, if he's ready for Premier League action. He is somebody in the squad that has got that ability in him. And without that ability, Manchester United are literally toothless. We might have an effective forward 3, but if you can't get the ball to them quickly, then you're not going to score goals. We eventually get the ball into the final third, or we eventually work the ball up the pitch a little bit, but it's so slow in getting there that the opposition has sat back, they've started to mark men. And because we can't break through the lines of a team, we're not going to score goals, or we're not going to score enough goals. We actually scored from a set piece yesterday, which I think is the first time since 26th of May 1999. Certainly the only one I can remember. There's no penetration at all. Number 2, Andreas Pereira is getting a lot of stick. There might be some validity to some of the stick that Andreas Pereira is getting. What we've seen with Pereira, and I think we mentioned this already in 5 things we learned at some point during the season already, is he's been given opportunities. This isn't someone that's come into the team, played once, and we've gone, he ain't good enough, get rid. Because that is reactionary. Someone like Brandon Williams has come in, maybe he has 1 or 2 shaky performances, it's to be expected. But Andreas Pereira has gone out on loan twice, played a full season out on loan twice, featured in virtually every single match for Manchester United this season. And he ain't getting it still. He's still shooting from crazy positions. The decision-making that he's taking isn't there. For someone that has got the ability to play a pass, he doesn't have the intelligence and the vision to play a pass. Why is he still in the team? I will defend Ollie in the fact that he has to select certain players, and his substitutions maybe aren't perfect, and I'll call him out on those as and when I see fit. But I can't defend him choosing to play Andreas Pereira. I don't understand why he can't play James Garner in the McTominay role and keep Fred doing the Fred role that he has been doing. I don't know what position is Andreas Pereira's best position, but I certainly don't think starting for Manchester United on a regular basis is going to get the best out of either him or Manchester United. He's proving time and time again that he can't do it. So I think it's a valid criticism to ask Solskjaer, what are you seeing in this kid that we're not seeing in this kid? I thought he came in for some heavy criticism yesterday that probably oversteps the line, because that's the way modern football's gone. And I don't like it, but that is the way the world is, where people just have to vent this anger all the time. I'll just say, I don't think Andreas Pereira is good enough, and I do think he's had the opportunity to prove that he is good enough. So I think it's time that someone else plays in his place. As for who that is, I do empathise and say, I don't know who you're going to play. As soon as McTominay and Pogba come back into the team, I hope we don't see the guy again. It probably needs another loan. In reality, he probably isn't good enough to play for Manchester United. Which leads us to number 3. The pressure is on for Ole. This week represents a real watershed moment in the tenure of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And it probably shouldn't. 12 months into the job is not a lot of time. 3 signings in that time when you lost 8 players is not a lot of time to judge him. When you look at the midfield that isn't available for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it's quite easy to see why we're not having consistent performances. He no longer has the availability of Ander Herrera, Marouane Fellaini, Matic, Pogba, McTominay. Those players don't play for Manchester United currently or are not available for selection. The ones who are, Fred, Pereira, they're simply not good enough to be Manchester United midfield. When you look at some of the teams that have caused us trouble this season, or some of the teams that are above us, they quite simply have a lot better of a midfield. The midfield is the engine room. The midfield is where a team is won and lost. If you look at our recent Champions League final winning teams, the midfield is where this was won and lost. Michael Carrick, Owen Hargreaves, Paul Scholes, great midfield. Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, great midfield. When you look at the midfield that Fergie had in the tenure where he wasn't quite doing it, Kleberson, Alan Smith, and then you wonder why that team didn't quite perform. It didn't perform because the engine room wasn't good enough. The pressure is on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because we don't have a good enough midfield. And as I said earlier, I will criticise some of the things, and I actually think the criticism of his substitutions is key. When you come out and say a substitute needs 20 minutes to make an impact, then you're bringing on someone like Mason Greenwood with 9 minutes to go. Well, you're setting yourself up for criticism there, aren't you, mate? Because you're saying, I'm not going to give him enough time to make an impact, enough time to get into the rhythm of the game. I don't understand the reason for bringing on Luke Shaw. Brandon was on a yellow card, and he is a walking yellow card, so of course that's the case, but I don't think he's silly enough to get himself sent off, certainly in the circumstance of that game. Manchester United desperately needed a midfield or something, or the tactics to bypass it. So many times we saw in the build-up for Manchester United, and this is going back to the no penetration thing, so many times we saw in the build-up, Maguire would try and take the lead, and Maguire's pass accuracy wasn't terrible, and Lindelof would try and do it, but they just couldn't find that final ball. And United was extremely easy to read because we were just rotating it around players that didn't have that penetration. One of the things I was really looking forward to when I knew Solskjaer was going to try and play with a ball-playing back four is that someone would step into midfield and create an overlap. But Lindelof and Maguire don't step into midfield with the intention of making an overlap. They don't even step into midfield. They come up to about the line of where the number 6 is, and then they turn around and pass it back to somebody else. There has to be more risk in our play. There has to be more risk in our build-up. And there has to be more quality coming right throughout the team of what we're doing. I can empathise with the lack of quality, but he has to get better with the tools that are currently at his disposal. And he has to recognise when those tools are plain and simply not good enough. He's given opportunities to young players, and that's fantastic. And as much as we all would like to see just all the young players brought in, it's unrealistic to expect that they're all going to be able to perform to the level of consistency which Manchester United fans expect. The pressure is on. Lose to Spurs, lose to Manchester City, and it might get deafening. Number 4, defence is overrated. So Manchester United finished last season with the worst defensive record that we'd ever seen. And you think, right, great, it can only go up from there, can't it? We improved it, we're bringing in Harry Maguire, who has been markedly better than what we saw out of both Chris Smalling and Phil Jones last season. And we brought in Wan-Bissaka, defensively, one of the absolute gods of defending. Less said about him with the ball, the better. That should improve how we are defensively, right? Especially when you see David De Gea seemingly coming somewhere towards back to his best. But we've conceded 5 goals in the last 2 games to newly promoted teams. I can't explain that. I can't explain that, and I won't defend that. That's not acceptable. We used to make it very difficult for ourselves because we would concede a single goal, and then you can moan at the attack going, lads, if you could just get 1 goal, we'd be all right. We'd have drawn that, or we'd have won that. But when we are scoring goals at the other end, but we can't keep them out of this end, what can you do? Now, this can go back to the quality of midfield because the defence doesn't play on its own. It's a team game and it's a team system that helps to prevent us conceding goals. I hope Ollie doesn't get cold feet and stop attacking because although he's not as successful as we would all hope him to be, he actually is trying to have a team that pushes into the opposition half and tries to score a lot of goals. We are trying to do that. I think we're failing at doing that. But we have to be better defensively. And I can't even just say, it's this problem, it's not picking this up at set pieces, it's that, it's this. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of silly mistakes where we should be better. And you've got people claiming now, and I'm one of them probably, Axel Tuanzebe probably improve over Lindelof. We're not stopping crosses. That's a systematic, basic football thing. We're not good defensively. We have to get meaner. And that's something that we definitely need to fix, because this week we're going to be tested. Number 5, there's an opportunity to bounce back. Amidst the doom and gloom, there is an opportunity presented with ourselves. Now, I'll put it to you guys. When have you come away from a big game this season and been disappointed with Ollie himself and gone, Ollie screwed that up? Because I'd say against Liverpool, he set the team up fantastically to be able to get a result, and it was an individual mistake at the end which allowed Liverpool back into the game. Against Arsenal, maybe, but again, we allowed someone back into the game that we probably should have converted our chances better on earlier in the game. In the big games, Leicester, Chelsea, and even Spurs last season, Liverpool failed to beat us at home and actually had less shots than Burnley did at Old Trafford. We created chances and we actually looked better playing against those poor teams. Another Louis van Gaalism, actually. There is an opportunity to bounce back against Spurs, and what a resounding victory that could be. If Paul Pogba returns, I fully expect to see 115% Paul Pogba. He will make it all about himself versus Jose Mourinho, and do you know what? I wouldn't put it past him to have the sort of game that I had at City a couple of years ago with blue hair. Then we've got City, who are so inconsistent at the moment, you couldn't ask for a better time to play them. If Manchester United went and got 6 points this week, it would silence a hell of a lot of critics. But I don't really have the confidence that we're getting 6 points, do you? Right, thank you guys for tuning in. This channel is supported by the absolute legends that are on Patreon. There's around about 800 in the group at the moment. We are pushing to 1,000, and extra bits of content get unlocked once we do get to like the 1,000 mark and all the different other kind of marks. The link is in the description if you'd like to find out a little bit more about why I am supported by Patreon and what the ultimate goal that we're aiming for is. There is a meet-up, 5-a-side, and a little bit of a drinky drink this week. So if you're in the Manchester area and you're thinking, yeah, I won't mind coming down, brave the cold, because let's be honest, it's going to be Baltic on Friday. If you're interested in coming down and checking that out, and we've got live podcasts in the pipeline too, Wes Brown in Manchester, and we are working on a Dublin one at the Smock Alley Theatre. If you're in Dublin, then come and join the Patreon group. It's full of absolute maniacs and savages, and if you like that sort of thing, you're going to fit right in. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.